Hi guys, and welcome to Magic. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create an HTTP gateway. Gateways are incredibly interesting, especially if you have an HTTP endpoint where you cannot easily apply business logic, such as, for instance, a GraphQL endpoint or a PostgREST endpoint. I mean, these are simple query endpoints where you cannot do stuff such as, for instance, validate input data. You cannot easily, for instance, send emails when endpoints are invoked, etc., etc. So I'm going to show you how you can actually easily achieve that by showing you a couple of files here I just recently created. I created a folder called FAQ, and then I have an original gateway original1.post.hl endpoint here, right, where I'm basically taking a name argument and I'm returning hello. And in fact, if I pass in Thomas here, then you see I'm invoking the endpoint. I'm getting hello, Thomas. Then I have another one that's called gateway original 2. If I pass in my name here now, just to apply different business logic here, I'm getting the Spanish version. Hello, hola there, Thomas. Now comes an interesting thing. If I now open up the gateway simple.post.hl file, and by the way, there's a link in the description of this YouTube video pointing to an article where you can find all the relevant code. Then I see that this one is actually invoking the one. The one was the one with auto ticket.verify. Yeah, so we have to change this one to actually gateway original-2. Now, if I invoke this, what is actually happening here is that first of all, the endpoint takes any data you want, right? So it doesn't care about whatever you pass, and that didn't work. What didn't work? -2 convert, yeah, because I need to remove these guys. Save. Let me copy this in case I get another error. And now it says hola there, Thomas, right? However, if I invoke number 1, then what is happening then is that I'm getting an exception. And why? Because the original endpoint required authorizations. I'm getting access denied thing here. However, let's study what it actually does with number 2. So here is gateway original number 2. It's basically a simple HTTP web API post method that concatenates the given name with the text hola there, right? And then it's returning that as JSON down here from line 7 to 9. Then my gateway-simple.post.hl is actually taking, first of all, it takes any amount of arguments. That's what this asterisk basically means. It means I can pass in anything I want to, right? That's why when I try to invoke it, I get this like empty payload thing here where I can put anything I want to. Then it adds all of those arguments, whatever arguments it is given into the http.post/*/payload invocation here. Then it says convert :true, which basically means that it just automatically converts it to a Lambda object before it's actually adding the result of the contents of the http.post invocation to the return. So basically what we have now is a tiny, thin little wrapper on top of an existing HTTP endpoint where we can do interesting stuff. We now, for instance, adds off.ticket. Actually, let's do validators, and then let's do string :x :app.argument/*/name min 5 max 10. Save the thing, invoke it, pass in a name that is longer than 10 characters. Invoke. Ta-da! We now have implemented business logic on an HTTP endpoint where we cannot actually touch the original endpoint's code for whatever reasons that happens to be. Maybe it's a GraphQL endpoint, maybe it's a PostgREST endpoint, whatever. It doesn't matter. We have intercepted that endpoint and created another endpoint that is a tiny wrapper around that original endpoint. And in our original endpoint, we can apply business logic. We now, for instance, upon successful invocations to this particular endpoint, we want to do if and mte :x http.post.int 200 lt :x @http.post post catch return dots colon int 300 dot lambda, and then we want to for instance, upon successful invocations to this thing, we want to do alt v smtp send an email. We're now sending an email, assuming we're capable of configuring an SMTP server using our management and configuration menu here. So I don't have an SMTP server, so I can't send emails at the moment. But if this endpoint basically succeeds, we're now sending an email, right? I'm gonna just write a dot in front of this one to ensure that we're not sending it. And then we can do an else, for instance, else lambda to hyper colon x colon at http dot post log dot error colon x colon minus. We've now implemented logging in our interceptor only if the endpoint fails, and if it hadn't been for this little tiny dot, we would have implemented sending an email from thomas@guiasol.com to testing.anarchy@gmail.com, but only if the endpoint succeeds. Let's try F5, just verify that it's still working. And now remember, I can't have anything shorter than 5 characters or longer than 10, because then my validator is going to kick in and it's invoking whole other Thomas. Now, if I go to gateway.post, here I have a significantly, or not significantly, a slightly more complex thing, because here I'm passing in the value of the authorization header given to me from the client. So I'm forwarding the authorization JWT token for this particular use case into the originally wrapped HTTP endpoint. For instance, for PostgREST or GraphQL or stuff like that, these types of service typically requires a JWT bearer type of authorization token. Well, here I'm passing it in, right? So if I now use this guy towards original one, see here, this one has ticket.verify requirements. If I now pass in name, Thomas, and I invoke it. If I didn't have an HTTP authorization bearer token, you can see it's clearly invoking the correct endpoint because it's not returning hola, it's returning hello, Thomas. If I now didn't have this thing here now, then when I'm invoking it, I would get an access denied. Of course, this penetrates to my client as a guru meditation thing. But if I go into my log now and I see access denied, or actually 8 seconds ago, value of null. I need to, I guess, remove this guy to save it and invoke it. And then I refresh my log and I see here something went wrong as I invoked my HTTP endpoint. And here you can see 401, access denied. So let me do control set twice, a couple of times. Gateway, actually I'm going to have to add it after I stop the video. But authorization colon x colon at http headers.get colon headers get. This isn't my day, is it? Authorization, let's try again. And there we almost were, HTTP authorization. Save F5. Invoke. And there we are. So anyways, yet again, there's going to be a link in the description of this YouTube video to an article where I'm going to be publishing all of this code, so you can basically reproduce it in its entirety for yourself. Remember to create an FAQ folder. Then you can upload, you can create these new files inside of that folder, and then you can start playing around with them. When I'm publishing it, I'm going to publish it like this, such that both gateway endpoints actually works. However, the objective is for you to play around with this such that, you know, you can like see how to implement such API gateways. And yet again, the objective of the exercise is that the gateway is a place where you can apply business logic easily using Hyperlambda, right? So this allows you to modify an existing HTTP endpoint where you cannot, for whatever reasons, modify the endpoint. And either apply business logic before you invoke the endpoint or after you invoke the endpoint, or log stuff, or, you know, add authorization requirements or validators or whatever you wish. So anyways, that was it. Remember to like the video, subscribe, hit the bell, and share the video with your friends. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.